This video was intended to inform and educate the public.
What you gonna do?
And Claire was located within the nursing home facility. At the time, she was in a room. She did have a knife in her hand, and it is fair to say that she was armed with that knife. The knife in question is a steak knife, a serrated edge knife that she had obtained from the kitchen area of the nursing home a couple of hours earlier.
What you gonna do when they come for you?
Hello everybody, and welcome once again to today's video here on the Junkyard News. It was in the early hours of May 17th, 2023, a quiet nursing home in Cooma, New South Wales, became the epicenter of a tragic confrontation that would captivate and divide Australia at the same time. The residents of a nursing home were asleep as usual, their lives sheltered in the comforting routines of aged care. But that night, a great-grandmother named Clare Nowland, known for her frail frame and a life rich with memories, became the central figure in a devastating and fateful encounter with a Leo. Clare, at 95 years old, was a shadow of her former self. Dementia had taken hold, blurring the lines between the past and the present, turning her peaceful existence into a battlefield of confusion. That morning, armed with a steak knife, she shuffled through the facility's hallways using her walker, barely getting along one step at a time. This, of course, caused stirring concern among the staff of the nursing home, and fearful for the safety of residents and staff, the night nurse dialed 000, setting into motion a series of events that would end in tragedy. You see, Senior Constable Kristian White was off duty when the call came through. Despite being off duty, he responded alongside his partner and paramedics, ready to diffuse the tension and the situation. What awaited him at the nursing home was an unsettling sight. A woman, barely over 100 pounds, clutching a knife, using a walker, her mind seemingly trapped in an unfamiliar and combative space. The confrontation escalated in the nurse's station when Claire refused to relinquish the knife, despite repeated pleas from the officers. The officers' commands echoed down the sterile hallways, their urgency growing with each refusal, and over the course of several tense minutes, they urged her 21 times to drop the knife. White's partner tried to disable her by kicking the walker's wheels, but the maneuver failed, and then, in a moment that would reverberate throughout Australia, White uttered the words, "Nah, bugger it." In American terms, that would probably be along the lines of, "Ah, fuck it," and he fired his taser. The 50,000-volt shock sent Claire tumbling backwards, her head colliding with the unforgiving floor. Silence followed, broken only by the hum of medical equipment as paramedics rushed her to Cooma Hospital. Her injuries severe, a brain bleed, inoperable and unrelenting. Clare Nowland, the mother of 8, grandmother of 24, and great-grandmother of 31, slipped away a week later, her family gathered by her side in grief and disbelief. Public reaction was swift and polarized. Some saw White's action as an overreach, a brutal misuse of force against a vulnerable woman. Others viewed the incident as a tragic consequence of an officer caught in an impossible situation. The trial that followed gripped the nation, not just for its legal implications, but for the ethical questions it raised about the limits of police authority and the use of tasers on the elderly. In the courtroom, White's defense painted a picture of a man trained to act decisively in the face of danger. His sworn duty, they argued, was to protect both himself and others from potential harm, even when the threat came from a 95-year-old woman using a walker, barely able to move, holding a steak knife. The prosecution, however, saw it differently. They described White's actions as criminally negligent, arguing that he breached his duty of care. His decision to fire his taser was not only unnecessary but reckless, a choice that any reasonable person should have known carried the risk of serious injury to this elderly woman. The jury deliberated for about 20 hours, weighing the officer's intent against the devastating outcome, and ultimately they returned a verdict. The officer guilty of manslaughter. White now faces a maximum sentence of 25 years in prison, and his future hangs in the balance as the legal process continues. Clare Nowland's story is more than just a headline. It is a sobering reflection of how society handles vulnerability, authority, and the delicate line between protection and harm. Clare's legacy, marked by this tragedy, continues to provoke debate and demands that Australia confronts its policies and law enforcement's use of force, particularly on those least able to defend themselves, the elderly.
And Clare was located within the nursing home facility. At the time she was in a room, she did have a knife in her hand, and it is fair to say that she was armed with that knife. The knife in question is a steak knife, a serrated edge knife that she had obtained from the kitchen area of the nursing home a couple of hours earlier. At the time she was tasered, she was approaching police, but it is fair to say at a slow pace. She had a walking frame, but she had a knife. I can't take it any further as to what was going through anyone's mind when the use of the taser. That is for them to talk to.
Thank you again for tuning in to this video news story here on the Junkyard News. Be careful, people. You just never know. The next story we cover on this channel, we could be talking about you and an interaction you have with a Leo in the next one. Thanks again.
The town of Cooma, 17th of May 2023, a fateful day for a New South Wales police officer and a 95-year-old great-grandmother. Resident Clare Nowland, who had symptoms of dementia, was unsettled. The New South Wales Supreme Court heard she'd been wandering around the home with 2 kitchen knives. 2 police officers, including Senior Constable Kristian White. Along with 2 paramedics, they searched for Clare Nowland, but they didn't see her. She walked with the aid of a walking frame to the nurse's room, where they later found her. It was here, after attempts to disarm Clare Nowland of a steak knife, that Kristian White fired his taser at her. She fell back and hit her head, later dying in hospital. Nearly 3 weeks in Sydney, Kristian White has been on trial for manslaughter. At the heart of this case is whether or not he used reasonable force with his taser against the 95-year-old.
Videos uploaded by the Junkyard News are helped in part by viewers just like you. You can show your support for this channel by clicking the thumbs up, sharing our videos, or hitting that all-important support button on our channel page. Don't want to miss a video or a story? Make sure to check us out and like us on Facebook at The Junkyard News.